And tell me, when you were then transitioning, did you ever think of, were you deliberate about the career choice, or it's something that sort of happened? You were open to anything?
In the pseudo corporate landscape where I worked, PhDs are not that highly regarded across the board. So when this gentleman pulled me into this organization, and it was me and another guy who had just completed a PhD at Wits. I'd graduated, he hadn't graduated. And he took in two of us to say, we are going to start the strategy and policy unit in this organization. And I need you to keep a low profile because you both have doctorates. Doctorates are not that you're going to be seen as a threat because we are not used to employing people with doctorates. So I need you both to keep a very low profile.
Wow.
So that gives you a sense of it's about 10 years ago. So maybe things have changed, but that was the sentiments. Those were the sentiments that were, communicated to both of us to keep a low profile. Don't be too loud because you're going to intimidate people. But I need you to bring in your intellectual capacity into the organization. So that was good, but also a bit surprising because we had taken so many years crafting the PhD and wanting to come back and to give that back in whatever way to society. And then you get into this landscape where you're told, lie low like an envelope because you have a doctorate.
Whoa. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a very important point you're raising, because people, I think they think, oh, I have a PhD now, everyone's going to want me. But actually, that's not always the case. And like you're saying, you can be seen as a
No, not always. And you might think that in an organization like that, you can come in as a full manager. I came in as a project manager. That is the lowest level that the lowest management level that you could get in. And so I had to work my way up despite the PhD, but it does come with some advantages. And one of the advantages, one of the differentiating thing, apart from the intellectual prowess that you bring in, you spend 4 years pretty much in isolation, seeking knowledge and reading wide and engaging at an entirely different level. The one thing, apart from that intellectual, prowess that you bring into the sector, is the fact that you can write. That is a big deal in the pseudo-private, landscape, that you can write.
I should maybe contextualize the question for my personal circumstances, because in the Netherlands, a PhD is a job. You are basically an employee at the university. You receive a salary at the time. That has changed a lot, I know now. It's a much more precarious position now as anywhere else in the world, as you know. But at the time, it was a good job. So I was earning good money. And so I also was in a space that I could move. I could go to a 1-year postdoc contract without knowing if it would be extended for another year. So in terms of preparations, it was simply that I was in the position to do what I wanted. And also because partly consciously, I made those choices not to buy a house or an apartment, not to tie myself into certain expenses and lifestyles. I wanted to have that mobility in my life, and still to some extent.
I was observing that the academia, it was increasingly becoming so difficult for all those with PhD to find some gainful employment. At the time I could see that those who had completed PhDs before me, others really with good records of publications, others had really made their mark in academia, but they were struggling to find, opportunities within academia. And this was not only specific to Wits. It seemed almost like a national crisis of some sort, that those with PhDs, particularly in social sciences, it was no longer a given, fact that post it, you will somehow be absorbed within the academia. So I had to take that responsibility because I feared that, I was gonna join that queue of the men who were waiting to get, some form of, meaningful absorption within the academia. So it was a conscious decision. Within those 2 years, I thought that my life post PhD was either going to be in public service or in academia. The years before then, I even thought of trade unions. But at the time when I was really thinking hard about my life post PhD, I thought of sort of concluded on the two options, either public service or academia. The option of trade unions at the time, it was no longer that appealing. I felt like the trade unions are becoming more bureaucratized, and that there was the democratic culture within trade unions was already diminishing. I observed quite a lot of officials in trade unions, whether as researchers, who were basically being ill-treated simply because they held views that were contrary to the leadership of respective trade unions. So yes, it was a conscious decision, and for me it was whether I go work for public service or I remain in academia. And the realities then in academia were just showing me that I'm gonna wait a little bit. I'm gonna struggle to finally find some space within academia.
Did you do anything to prepare for that tight moment when you're about to complete financially?
You were beginning to assume more responsibility, not just for yourself, but, for others. And it meant you have to be very careful in terms of planning about the next meal, about the next book you can buy, about the next conference you can attend. So that meant that, when I was doing my PhD, as I said, I had some of these teaching appointments here and there, Cape Town and Freiburg, Vienna, and so on. So it meant that one had to save, right? And you had to then project, okay, given how much I have now, for how long can I subsist on it? And what is, the maximum period I need before I get a proper job? But really, it meant being very frugal, because you don't have the luxury of fee rebates anymore, So and you can just apply for scholarships, as you did. You can apply for grants, but you probably don't have enough clout to get the big grants. So so I think it meant you had to really save, but also you had to worry a lot about when will the permanent job come, right? And where are the permanent jobs on the continent? As I said, Europe, when North America was out for me, right? So it's really about being on the continent. So I think planning for me meant saving a lot, because in the event that the job doesn't come, how do you live, right? How do you survive? And
at the time when I was concluding the last year, I was already working. So the biggest challenge for me was not the financial pressures. It was more around juggling full-time work with the PhD. I was employed in government. So I did not really struggle a lot, but I could imagine it would have been tough.
The university CAS provided some form of scholarship, but it was for 3 years, and also ended in the third year. So the last year, which is the fourth year, I used mostly my own resources. I had to rely on my wife, but also my siblings. Of course, this has also history. We had an arrangement with my siblings that I would sacrifice my studies and support them because we are from a single parent. In fact, we lost our father at an early age through an accident. So I had to sacrifice my studies, being the eldest at home. I had to sacrifice my studies and see to it that the siblings behind me are able to proceed study, whilst I assisted. Now, when some of them had finished their tertiary education, they had to return the favor and provide support for my studies. So that's how it worked. Of course, I had also to raise a loan, a little bit of a loan to top up the support that I was getting from them.
Wow. So it was a community, this PhD in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
That's very nice. It's nice that you had all the support that you had from your family and your wife. That's something that people hardly make reference to, the wives supporting husbands.
Yeah. No, she did a lot in terms of supporting me.